Maybe the boldest prayer we could pray to our God through this Imagine 320 series is, God, make me brave. God, grow me into a person that runs to challenges and impossible things rather than away from them. That's a bold prayer. God, make me brave. Create a mindset in me that sees difficulties and obstacles as opportunities for you to just show up in my life. God, make me brave. Build me into the kind of person that sees impossible things as just routine things to you. Don't let me be influenced by the thinking of those around me that see dreaming as a waste of time or acting boldly in the face of big odds as a waste of energy. Help me to see you as you really are so I can see me as I really am, bold and brave. Hey, it's week 2 of Imagine 320. So glad you're here for this second service. Last week was all about dreaming big dreams. This week, it's all about acting boldly, bold actions, doing bold things. Today, we start talking about being brave, and not just brave enough to dream, but brave enough to act boldly. So last week, if you were here, you got a guidebook that looked like this. Hopefully you brought it back with you. But we want to give another opportunity. We realize scheduling and stuff, some people probably couldn't be here last week for the first week of this series. If you do not have a guidebook today, whether or not you were here last or weren't here last week or maybe forgot it today, we want to get you another one this morning. So raise your hand. The usher team is ready to serve you. Keep them up for a few seconds so we can get you a guidebook today. And again, every single week there's a section in there as you flip through. You'll see a section to take notes every single week of the talk. So, and then we'll be in a certain part of that guidebook today, and you can write some stuff in the margin maybe as well. So, also, I want to give permission too. There are pens located right here in the center. If you don't have a pen, maybe ask the person at the end of your aisle, hey, can you grab me one? Or get up right now. Go ahead and grab a pen right now so you're ready for this second week. And as everybody's kind of getting situated, I just want to give a big welcome to those maybe here at Revolution for the first time. I know we don't talk about this very much, but this is like back to church Sunday, I guess, this week. So there's probably some new people. This is your first time. Maybe you haven't been in church in a while, and you're already thinking like, God, make me brave. Bold actions, big dreams. I'm not sure about all this. I'm not a very religious person, Anthony. Well, hey, trust me, come to Revolution long enough, you're going to find out we're not that religious either. We just love Jesus, and we want to show his love to others. So welcome to you if this is your first time. So glad you're here for the week 2 of this series. And again, so as you get that guidebook, last week was all about dreaming big dreams. Here was the big idea last Sunday. This is the big idea. The size of your imagination may be the most accurate measure of the size of your God. Really, the only place, think about this, the only place in the world where God has limits is the free will mind of a human being. We limit God in our own mind, in our own imagination, and therefore sometimes I think we block God's bigger plans and purposes for our life, our church, our community, and beyond, simply because we're not willing to dream big enough for God's glory. In Ephesians 3, verse 20, which is where we got the name for this series, this is what it says. Now to him who's able to do immeasurably more. Think about that. You can't even measure how much more God can do than all we ask or imagine according to his power that is at work within us. If you can imagine it, God can do more than that. This is his math symbol right here. He is greater than, more than anything we can ask or imagine. This is who our God is right here. So today is about making that transition from big dreams to bold actions. And let me just stop right here. We've got the guidebooks. We got the pens. We're ready for week 2. Let me just pray for us as we go forward. God, again, just praying that you would be here in this service in a big way. It's one thing to dream. It's another thing to act. It's a harder thing to act. It's a bigger step, I think, to start doing these bold things. So as we talk about maybe the boldest of the bold today, the thing that you are calling and compelling all of us to take action with. Guide it. Open our hearts. Open our hearts. This is a heart topic, God. So be here in a real way. In Jesus' name, amen. This past Monday, we remembered the events of 9/11. On September 11th, 2001, 2 planes taken over by Islamic terrorists crashing into the Twin Towers in New York City. It's a moment where time stood still. I'm sure as you remember that this week, you remember where you were when you found out those events happened or were happening. It's a moment we can't forget as Americans. And, of course, the natural instinct of everyone in those buildings after the planes collided with the towers was to get out. That's what we would all be doing. If a building was on fire, getting ready to collapse, we would be trying to find the closest exit. But there were hundreds of men and women that day that ran in. One of them was a fireman by the name of Timothy Stackpole. And there's so many different stories that came out of those events. This is just one of those stories, one account of his story. And I'll just read it for you. It says, after 21 years of fighting some of New York's toughest fires, including a 1998 blaze that almost killed him, firefighter Timothy Stackpole proudly served his first day as captain on September 10th, 2001, the day before the terrorist attacks of 9/11. The next day, he was one of hundreds of firemen who answered the call after the World Trade Center was struck by two airlines. Stackpole, who was a legend in the fire department after surviving the 1998 fire, was dedicated to his job to the end. The greatest high you can get in life is by helping somebody, he said in an announcement that was taped before his death. He had two passions, family and fire. And while fighting a 4-alarm fire at a Brooklyn row house in the summer of 1998, he heard that a woman was trapped inside. So without hesitation, he and two other firefighters did what firefighters do. They ran into the flames to save her. While the three firefighters were inside, the floor collapsed without warning. My whole body was trapped up to my neck, Stackpole said. The fire was still roaring all around us, and I remember the excruciating pain in my ankles burned to the bone. And I remember just praying to God in that moment, God, just let me die bravely. Stackpole and his colleagues were trapped in the fire for almost a half hour before finally being saved by 34 other firefighters that put their own lives at risk to save them. Fast forward to September 11th, 2001, Stackpole was among the first to get to ground zero. He led a team that ran into both World Trade Centers to rescue victims after it was struck. He and the others all perished when the tower collapsed. Recovery workers found his body about a week later. 10,000 people attended Stackpole's funeral, including Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, who called him one of the most exceptional human beings I've ever met. We can't remember that event, what happened that day, how it changed us as a nation. And as I was reflecting on this story, as I was thinking about our Bible character for this series, his name is Benaiah. We'll get to him in just a minute. As I was thinking of guys like this, a lot of questions were kind of running through my mind. Questions like, what compels someone to run to the risk when everyone else is running away? What ignites a person's heart so strongly they would risk everything for the life of someone else? Everything. What would motivate a human being to put themselves in this position to risk their own safety and security, not even knowing if their risk is going to pay off at all, to hopefully make a difference for the better? And there's a guy in the Bible, we started talking about him last week, that had this same kind of courage. And if you'd like to follow along, we're going to be in 2 Samuel 23. That's where his story is found. There's lots of stories in that chapter. And we're going to be there every week of this series. So if you want to put a bookmark in your Bible, or maybe you have a Bible app, you can bookmark your Bible app and put a note in the margin if you're somebody that likes to do that. Maybe you write Imagine3 in the margin right next to 2 Samuel 23. Because this is a chapter filled with Imagine3, guys. 37 names are mentioned in this chapter, to be exact. 37 guys that surrounded King David. He was the second king of the nation of Israel. And he had these men in his life, friends, servants, warriors that were beside him, bodyguards. These men were willing to risk everything for this king. And what drew these men to David? What turned these ragtag rebels into a band of brothers who would risk their lives for someone else? These men were drawn to an Imagine3 king with a God-sized dream that would boldly act on those dreams. That's who David was. And that's what will draw people to you, and that's what will draw people to Revolution Church. Guys like Josheb-Basebeth. We talked about him last week. He raised a spear against 800 enemy soldiers, and in one encounter, he took them all out. 800 against one took him down. Or Eleazar, he was another guy where everybody else retreated in the army. Eleazar stood his ground with a sword and fought off the enemy until his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. And then down in verse 20, in this sea of other Imagine3 warriors, we find out about Benaiah, our main character for this series. And here's the verse we looked at last Sunday. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant fighter from Kabzeel, performed great exploits. And that's all we got last week. If you're here, we talked about how Kabzeel was this really small town, remote area. And then we just started to imagine, what do you think those exploits were? And we put it in context with the three mighty warriors. And hey, what do you think he did? And we talked about Rambo and, all these different warriors that were real too. But here's what those exploits actually were. Here's what Benaiah actually did. He struck down Moab's two mightiest warriors. He also went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. Just casually throws that in there. By the way, he killed a lion. And he struck down a huge Egyptian. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club. He snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He too was as famous as the three mighty warriors. Would you just turn to the person next to you, even if you don't know him, just turn to him and say, Benaiah was a bad mamma jamma. Just tell him right now. Just look at him. I mean, everybody's doing it. Come on, tell somebody next to you. This dude was bad to the bone, right? I mean, think about these exploits. Think about the acts of courage from this guy named Benaiah. He struck down Moab's two mightiest warriors, the best of the best. In the original Hebrew, what it says is he struck down two Ariels of Moab. Not Ariel as in like Princess Ariel, Little Mermaid. That's not a great exploit at all, okay? No, Ariel as in the Hebrew form of the word, it means lion-like men. So what it says here is he struck down two lion-like men of Moab, the two mightiest lion-like men. I mean, these were some unbelievable warriors. Some Bible scholars believe these warriors of Moab actually wore hats or helmets made of a lion's head, which is where they got their description. So, I mean, people reading this back in the day, this would have had some shock value, like, oh, the men of Moab, the lion-like men of Moab, they're like Green Berets or the Navy SEALs, the best of the best, and he kills the two best of the best, right? Two men of Moab. And then it's like, if killing lion-like men's not enough valiancy, then he kills a flipping lion too. Like a real lion. He goes into a pit on a snowy day, wrestles this lion to the ground, and takes him out. And here's what I know. When the image of a man-eating beast travels across the optic nerve into the visual cortex of our brain sends a very simple message to the body. Run! And not just run, but run in the other direction as fast, as far away as you can. Lions weigh approximately 500 pounds. They can run about 30 miles an hour, and they have these things called claws. If you find yourself in a pit with a lion on a snowy day, you have a problem. Probably the last problem you're ever going to have. Heaven's going to be your home within seconds. But imagine 320 men like Benaiah. They're not wired that way. They don't run away from the risk. They run to the risk. They run to what they're afraid of. They run to that impossible thing that's in front of them. And then it says he struck down this huge Egyptian. There's another account of the story in the book of 1 Chronicles. It tells us how big the Egyptian was. He was 7.5 feet tall. And Benaiah realizes he's not only outmatched in the size department, he's outmatched in the weapon department. This guy's got a spear, and he looks like Fred Flintstone. He brought a club to a spear fight. But no big deal. He just steals Dikembe Mutombo's spear and kills him with his own spear. Again, Benaiah runs to the risk. He's a man of extremely bold action. He runs to the brave. In Revolution, here's the question for today. What would it look like to start living more like Benaiah? Now, today, for our church, our community, and beyond, what would it look like to start running to the risk rather than away from it? Accomplishing this vision and the goals of our generosity initiative, it's going to take a church full of Benaiahs. Every one of us. It's going to take a church full of people that think like 9/11 firefighters, that we run in when everyone else runs out. A church willing to run to the risk, willing to lay it all on the line for the lives of others. Because like we talked about last week, this vision, this generosity initiative, it's not just about us. It's about our church, our community, and beyond. This is about the lives of people that do not know Christ yet. This is about the 30,000 people still disconnected from Jesus or the local church in our community. This is about those who are coming. This is about people that haven't yet surrendered their life to Christ in North Central Indiana and beyond. And for this to happen, we're all going to have to be willing to dream big and act boldly. We're going to have to be willing to dream big and jump in the pit and take down the lion on a snowy day. Dream big and take out the Egyptian. Dream big and fight off the two mightiest men of Moab. Dream big and act boldly. So the question we have to be asking, starting today and for the rest of this series is, what bold action do I need to take to Imagine 320? This is what we've all need to be reflecting on. Or we can put it in our family's perspective. What bold action does my family need to take to Imagine 320? What is our part to play in this? I'm dreaming big. I've already caught that. I've caught the dream. What is the bold action God is calling me to? And we started talking about this last week, and we said our primary goal for this initiative, Imagine 320, is 100% engagement. And what that means simply is, we have 3 next steps that are on this wall. We're going to see them every week. What 100% engagement means is every single person that is a revolutionary that says, I go to Revolution, Revolution's my church, we're doing 3 things in a bold way. 3 things in a bold way. 100% engagement. We're praying bolder prayers than we've ever prayed before. God, you got to do this. Get behind this. Lead this. Be in this. Provide the resources. Provide the volunteers, the leaders we need. Pray impossible God-sized prayers for this. Pray every day at 3:20 p.m. That's what we called everyone to last week. It was so cool meeting with our life group last night and just seeing hands go up. Like we're all taking that step of every day. We've missed maybe a day or two, but every day 3:20, that alarm goes off. Hundreds of people throughout our community are taking that bold step of prayer. Join with the prayer team. There's going to be more opportunities to pray over at the new property and some other things they're working on. So 100% engagement is pray boldly, but we're not stopping there. We're giving boldly. God, what is a sacrificial financial commitment you're calling me or me and my family to make to this initiative over the 2-year time frame? We're asking everybody to make a financial commitment to this initiative for 2 years. And then serve boldly. It's 3 things. Serve boldly. What team do I need to join? You know, what part do you have for me to play? How can you use my hands and my feet and my time and my energy, God, to be part of this thing called Revolution now and in the future? And 100% engagement is not 1 thing or 2 things. It is 3 things all in this together. That's the primary goal of this initiative. Our second goal, our Benaiah-sized second goal, is $2 million in generosity over 2 years. And we know it is going to take every person at Revolution giving boldly for that to happen. If we hit the first goal, listen, if we hit the first goal of 100% engagement, we'll knock the other goal out of the park. If we all commit to giving boldly, we will blow that second goal away. If we dream big and act boldly with our generosity, God is going to do something greater than $2 million. God is greater than $2 million, as big a number as that maybe sounds to some of us. But it's going to take all of us. And we want your family to have time to think through this, process this, like prayerfully work through this. And what that means practically is next Sunday evening is going to be your first opportunity to make that bold financial commitment. We're having something called Advanced Commitment Night. It's going to be our first ever event at the new building just down the road, 3930 East Market Street. Thanks to a crew of 40-some individuals, it's now like a blank canvas, all the shelving's out of there and stuff. It's going to be awesome. So we're encouraging everyone that's engaged with this and ready to be at that event and be ready to take your next step in financial commitment. And this is like a pace setter thing. The leaders are going first. Those that are ready are going first. And Julie's going to give a little bit more info on that at the end. And then Commitment Sunday is the final week of this series, October 8th. Maybe you need some extra time to work through this, pray through this, or because of scheduling conflict, you're not able to be there next Sunday night. So that the second opportunity to give boldly is going to be that October 8th, Sunday morning in our gatherings, what we're calling Commitment Sunday, to make that commitment to Imagine 320. So again, we want you to have time to process this, think through this, pray through this. And one of the things we've created to help with that, some kind of a tool to help with that, is on page 6 and 7 of that guidebook. It's called a giving discipleship journey. We've created this to help you discover what step you're at with generosity and what next step God might be calling you to. Because here's what we know as you're turning there. All of us in the room are at different places on the faith journey. Like, we are a very diverse church with people all across the faith spectrum, and generosity is a faith step. It really is. So there are people here at different steps. Some people have taken their first step. Some have taken their fifth step. What I love about this process we're going through is that this initiative might be your very first step in this area of your spiritual life. If you're thinking, like, I've never given a Revolution before, can I be part of this thing called Imagine3? Absolutely. We created this with you in mind. One of the biggest wins for this initiative, again, 100% engagement, one of the biggest wins is if you haven't taken the spiritual step of giving, because it's a spiritual step, but if you haven't taken that step, then you take it through this initiative as we're more intentional with it. And here's why I say we created this with you in mind. Because this is a one-fund campaign. This is kind of the description of it. It's a one-fund campaign. So many times, I don't know if you've been part of this before, but when a church will buy a building or go through kind of a building campaign, they'll call the church to, hey, give your normal giving to the operation of the church and then give above and beyond to this new thing we're doing, this building or whatever it might be. So give your tithe, and above and beyond your tithe, you can give to this new thing. But at Revolution, we believe the mission of the church is the mission of the church. This whole thing, every aspect of this is about reaching more people with the gospel, helping more people find and follow Jesus Christ. That's what every part of the vision and mission is at Revolution. And yes, more funding is needed because we've bought a new building and we're going to remodel a new building, and we have this vision for church planting. So more funding is needed, but the mission is the mission. We're all in this together, whether Imagine3 is your first generosity step or your fifth generosity step. Does that make sense? And creating this separate giving side, it can be confusing, especially for those that maybe don't have any gauge yet for giving. You haven't taken that step. So again, over the next 2 years, this is really important. Over the next 2 years, we're asking everyone at Revolution to take a next step on your giving journey. A bold step of generosity, a financial commitment for 2 years to fund the entire vision and mission of our church. During these 2 years, all giving is going to go to and through Imagine3. Every dollar. This is a one-fund approach. The $2 million goal, that goal covers 2 years of our operations. It covers the purchase and remodel of the building and the vision we have for church planting. It's all in that number. It's all together, one fund. So all of that to say, and if you have any questions about that, I know that's a lot of information. We want to help. There's ways Julie's going to talk about that at the end. So all of that to say, maybe through this initiative, you're going to take the bold step of being an initial giver. And here's where we're back to pages 6 and 7 if you want to follow along. Maybe your step is to be an initial giver for the first time in your life or the first time in a long time. You're going to take a financial trust step and say, God, I know it's all yours. I know it's all yours. And I'm going to take the first step of entrusting it to you by giving a financial commitment to and through the local church. And that's going to be such an amazing step. I cannot wait to hear the stories of people for the first time, like that take that step. And Scripture is so clear that living a generous life leads to an abundant life. I can't wait to hear the stories of those that that's your bold step for this. And let me show you where that's found in Scripture. It's 1 Corinthians 9. This talks about all kinds of like new ways of giving since Jesus came and all that. But it says, remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. And it's kind of an illustration, like planting seeds. And all. What's it mean? Here's what it means. You must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives cheerfully. And look at this promise. And God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. It's a promise that a generous life leads to an abundant life in so many areas of your life. Not just finances, but relationships, emotions, all these things. A generous life leads to an abundant life. And more than that, it's not just going to affect you, it's going to affect our church, our community, and beyond when you take this first step of being an initial giver. But maybe you've given to and through the church before or through another church before, but your next step is consistency. This is where you're at. A bold generosity step for you is to become a consistent giver. And a consistent giver is someone that makes giving part of the rhythm of your finances. It's what you do now. Like you earn, you save, you spend, and you give. It's just part of what you do with your finances. And when you get to this step of consistent giving, it's not so much about the amount as it is about the consistency. You might not be to that level of tithing yet or trusting God with 10% of your resources, but you're consistent with like that $40 a week or that $50, whatever it is that God's calling you to give. Consistency. And I've told this so many times from this stage. Second only to surrendering your life to Jesus, becoming a consistent giver will change your life more than anything else for the better. Because money, especially in America, it gets a grip on our heart. It controls us. We don't even realize it. And there is so much freedom. The only thing that releases its grip is generosity. There is so much freedom found in consistently over time giving it away. And not only is it going to change you, but it's going to change our church, our community, and beyond. The next bold giving step is an intentional giver. Maybe this is the transition for you. This is the step for you. An intentional giver, this is big. An intentional giver is someone that starts thinking about their giving in relation to other things you're spending your money on. You look at the AT&T bill or the Comcast, DirecTV, you're like, why am I giving so much to them and I'm just giving God kind of what's left over? Or why do I have this consistent payment to PNC Bank every month, but I'm just like, I'm not that disciplined when it comes to giving to God. Intentional givers start to understand the reason why we're given resources in the first place, that we're entrusted with resources to give them away, to make the biggest difference we can with them. That's the purpose. And this is the step where the practice of tithing often starts. Giving 10% usually happens on this step in the giving journey. And I remember when my wife and I first took this step, probably 8 or 9 years ago, the first thought was, because we do it monthly, it's just, we make it part of the rhythm of our monthly finances. We budget monthly, that's just how we do it. When we first started doing this, we started thinking, man, like our giving is now one of the biggest checks we write every month. It had some shock value to it at first. But as we did it, as our heart changes, our life changes, we see what God does with the resources. It's now like, man, giving is one of the biggest checks we get to write every month. This is how God meant for us to live. Why didn't we start doing this before now? There's a bigger purpose to our resources than just us and using them for us. It just changes you. So maybe that's your next step, to be an intentional giver. It's going to change you. It's going to change our church, our community, and beyond. Here's a big one. Maybe your next step is a surrendered giver. This is a really big step. This is a Benaiah step right here. This is a person whose spending is governed by their giving. And just hang with me on this. I'll explain it. The idea of being a surrendered giver is someone that calculates giving before spending and saving is calculated. In the life of a surrendered giver, the amount God calls them to give is discovered and decided before spending and saving. So the spending and saving revolves around the generosity number. Our whole financial world is surrendered to God's will. You cut other things out of the budget to make sure you hit your generosity goal of 20% or 30% or whatever it is that God calls you to. This is a person that usually takes steps to give a percentage above and beyond the tithe. And then the rest of our budget, the rest of our financial world revolves around, we make changes in the rest of it to hit the generosity goal. That's what it means to be a surrendered giver. And there's a huge promise with this. There's this verse in Proverbs 3. Here's what it says. Proverbs 3, verse 9. Yeah. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Not just the first part, the best, like whatever God calls to give, like that's the best. Honor him with that. Surrender that to him, and then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. I'm going to make that a little more 21st century here in a minute, because we might not relate to that very well, but you kind of connect with the good wine thing maybe. I don't know. But there's just a huge promise. There's a huge promise in living a surrendered giver life. And again, it doesn't just change you. It changes our church, our community, and beyond. And the final next step is a lifetime giver. This is someone that is thinking about the legacy they want to leave with generosity. This is big. Like big long-term purchases like buying a house are ran through the filter of how will this affect my generosity throughout life? How will this affect my generosity legacy? And lifetime givers come to this place of, like, I want the amount eventually, as I discipline myself over time, I want to eventually get to this place where the amount I'm giving away is more than the amount I'm using on myself. It takes a while to get there, but you hear these crazy stories of people that even get to this level of like reverse tithing where they operate on 10 and give 90 away, and how fun would that be to just change lives through that? Lifetime giver. For us, for our family, my wife and I believe God is calling us in this process to go from being an intentional giver to a surrendered giver. I think we've been an intentional giver for about 8 or 9 years, and God is calling us to go into this new world of surrendered giving. In that verse in Proverbs, it has become very alive to us the last 8 or 9 years as we've been more disciplined. Let me give you the Cazello version, the 21st century version of how we see this working. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth, the best part of everything you make. Then He will fill your hearts with fulfillment, and your soul will overflow with good things. That's our version of it. Because it just becomes more and more alive and real the more we do it. At the beginning of Revolution, there was a lot of sacrifice that went into getting this thing started from us, from about 6 other families or so probably in the financial world. One tough thing for us was there wasn't any income really at the beginning, so I'm working 3 part-time jobs to provide for our family, and I'm still doing church planting full-time because it took a lot of time and energy to work on things. So that was difficult, but the biggest, boldest generosity step that God called us to, and I'm not sharing this to brag, this is just our story. It's just what God told us. God called us to drain our 401k and give it to Revolution in the beginning. We felt like this was just what God wanted us to do. And it was just starting to get to that place where we were seeing a number that compound interest could maybe work with. Finally, like maybe 8% interest could get behind this number and do something with it. But we drained it. We gave it to the church. We ran to the risk. And it changed our life forever. And it continues to change our life as we experience the spiritual compound interest of life change at Revolution Church now 7 years later. And what I'm so excited about with this generosity initiative, 2 years, we're going to make a commitment to our church financially. What I'm so excited about Imagine 320 is our kids are now old enough to understand this. I think Aspen was maybe 3 at the time when we first started the church. Jacob was 2. Aspen's 11. Jacob's 10 now. They're going to feel this sacrifice. We believe God's given us a number that we're supposed to give monthly to this initiative. And let me just say, it's going to mess with their world a little bit. We're going to have some peanut butter and jelly parties a few nights a week over the next couple of years. It's going to be a blast. We're going to be minimizing some current monthly bills like cable and internet. And I'm so excited for that because they're going to get to experience the sacrifice that comes with giving, but more than that, the joy and fulfillment that comes with using our resources to make a bigger difference. They're going to be part of the life change that happens through Imagine 320 and way beyond the next 2 years. They're going to start to see at age 10 and 11 the bigger purpose of our resources, that we are not given money for us, that the whole goal, the whole reason we're given resources is to give them away and try to make the biggest difference we can with our resources. And it says that, I read a little bit of 2 Corinthians 9 earlier. Let me read you one of the final verses of that section. It says, yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. The whole point of earning money is to give it away and to have goals and strategies to be more generous tomorrow than we are today. So what is your next step? Specifically, your bold action, your Benaiah-sized generosity step. And maybe you're like, but Anthony, this is risky. Like, I'm thinking about this. I think God's maybe been speaking to me something already. These numbers are kind of coming. This is risky. I don't even know how exactly we're going to do this. And you're right. Like, if you look at numerically, yes. If you show this to your accountant or your Charles Schwab agent, yes, it's going to seem risky when we look at it analytically, absolutely. But I think when we step back and look at the bigger picture of this, I think the risk is on the other side. It's risky not to be generous and take a bold next step in this direction. It's too risky to not obey God and taking your bold next step in generosity. It's too risky to not be part of what God wants to do in changing lives in our church, our community, and beyond. Because friends, I don't know if you've realized this yet or not, but God's going to change a lot of lives over the next 2 years and beyond. Like, this is going to change our city. I don't know if you've caught that yet. This is going to literally transform Logansport and beyond. There were 500 people that saw the resurrected body of Jesus a couple thousand years ago. They've changed all of history. There's about 500 people really connected at Revolution right now. It's going to change our community, friends. There's going to be so much life change, so many stories, so many people whose lives are changed forever through this. And I'll never forget one of those lives. February 13th, a couple years ago, just a normal day at the Revolution office. And in walks a woman named Sandy Mead with her son, Matt. And instead of me telling his story, I'll let Matt tell it.
My name is Matthew Mead, and I've been a part of this church, Revolution, since February 13th, 2015. My life before I moved up here was pure misery. I was on the needle, and a lot of people would refer to me as a dumpster addict. Anything that I could fit into a rig, meth, heroin, Opana, Dilaudid, whatever I could find. There was zero hope of coming out. I knew in my heart it was going to take me one way or another. Whether I was going to finally get convinced to kill myself, or if somebody else was going to kill me, or if the drugs were going to kill me, one way or another, I knew that I was going to die in that life. I would say that hope began showing itself in my life the day I moved here. The first time that I talked to my mother about the church. As soon as we started talking about that, and when I had come up here and met Anthony and Shauna, something changed in me. So I knew that there was going to be a positive outcome. After meeting Jesus, my life is unrecognizable to the point where sometimes I look in the mirror and I don't even know who it is anymore. I'm so used to the old Matt. I'm at a different level right now. Jesus has changed my life all the way around. Revolution has made a difference in my life by simply being here, by having their arms open and not judging me. Everybody's welcome here, and that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. That's what's really important to me, is to know that people aren't looking at my past, and people can see that there is good in me. There's a lot of drugs in this town, and there's a lot of guys that have killed themselves, men and women. There's a lot of people that their lives are just going down in a downward spiral, and they're more willing to speak to somebody like me who's been through it. I'm actually able to make some sort of an impact in their life just by them hearing my story, you know. And never in a million years would I have thought that God would take my biggest weakness, the darkest moments of my life, and turn them into some of the biggest strengths that I could ever imagine having. The men's group here at church, which now I lead, which that's something I never ever imagined would happen. 3 years ago, I was running with about the worst people I've ever seen in my life. And now I'm leading a men's group at a church. It just doesn't make sense, but I love it. I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. When I look into the future now, it's bright. I know that I'm going to go through struggles, and I know I'm going to go through pain, and I'm dealing with some of that now with my mom dying. But I have a clear head of where she's going, and that's what's helping me through this whole situation. I know that I can get through anything with God in my corner, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Group of people, a body my life a living sacrifice. You guys have no idea how hard those words are for me to say. I know there's a lot of you in here just like me. I'm a control freak. I want to control everything. And nothing reminds you more that you're not in control than when things happen in your lives that take control out of your hands. And sometimes that's what needs to happen. Father, I thank you for the recent reminder that you've given me that I can't hang on to everything. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not in control of anything. You give me freedom. You give me grace. You've given me my life back. And Lord, if I forget that, if I don't put you first, the world will take it away. But I know that nothing strikes fear in the heart of my enemy like being willing to abandon everything, die daily, and take up my cross for you. Lord, let us be a people. Let us be a group of individuals that unite together to do great things. We would be willing to lay down our lives for you. Then and only then will we see this Imagine 320 come to fruition, where we see it come to pass, where lives are changed, where a community is changed. Like you've changed so many of us here. We thank you, praise you. You alone are worthy of all praise. In Jesus' name. You guys can be seated.